Iran, a country that has been making international headlines for all the wrong reasons since September last year. Iran has relaunched patrols by the highly notorious so-called morality police as authorities escalate their efforts to enforce the country's mandatory hijab rules. The spokesperson for the Iranian law enforcement force says police patrols are now operational on foot and with vehicles to crack down on women whose hijab or head covering is not deemed appropriate in the Islamic Republic. Last September, this very morality police arrested 22-year-old woman Mahsa Amini in Tehran for wearing what they deemed inappropriate clothing. They then took her to a police station where she slipped into a coma. 3 days later, on the 16th of September, she died in hospital. Amini's death sparked widespread anger, leading to anti-government rallies across the country. These were unprecedented protests that presented the biggest challenge to the Iranian regime since the fall of the Shah that resulted from the Iranian Revolution. The protests paralyzed the country for months, often turning violent thanks to a brutal crackdown by the government, resulting in the loss of many lives. Last week, there were several high-profile hijab-related incidents. The Iranian authorities released a video which showed people who appeared to be a group of police officers accompanied by a camera crew go around and tell women of all ages to fix their hijab. The camera zooms in on the women's unblurred faces and shows an animation indicating that they've been identified and referred to the judiciary. Either you fix your hijab or you enter the van. A man whose voice has been digitally distorted tells a young woman in this video, "If you believe in freedom, I will leave all the thieves and rapists free to let you know how things work," he says. Another incident occurred on Sunday when actor Mohammad Sadeghi was arrested. He had released a reaction video online a day earlier in which he responded to another clip that showed a female officer holding a woman against the wall over her wearing of the hijab. "If I see a scene like this in person, I might commit murder. Watch out, you better believe the people will kill you." That's what the actor had said, prompting his arrest for, quote-unquote, threatening the police for doing its job. Earlier, actress Azadeh Samadhi was sentenced by a court to a 6-month ban on using social media and her mobile phone in addition to mandated therapy to cure her of an antisocial personality sickness. Why? Because she'd participated in the funeral of a theatre director without a headscarf in May this year. Samadhi joined a group of actresses who've been summoned or have received sentences in recent months for ditching their headscarves publicly or online. This so-called morality police, officially known as Gasht-e-Arshad, which translates as guidance patrols, is a unit of Iran's police force, established under former hardline President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. Wearing the hijab became mandatory in Iran in 1983. It was not until 2006 that the unit began patrolling the streets, tasked with enforcing the laws on Islamic dress code in public. According to Iranian law, all women above the age of puberty must wear a head covering and loose clothing in public, although the exact age is not clearly defined. In school, girls typically have to wear the hijab from the age of 7 onwards. But that does not mean that they necessarily have to wear it in other public places. A major part of Iran's social regulations are based on the state's interpretation of the strict Islamic Sharia law, which requires both men and women to dress modestly. However, in practice, the morality police have primarily targeted women. There are no clear guidelines or details on what type of clothing qualifies as inappropriate, leaving a lot of room for interpretation and sparking accusations that the morality enforcers arbitrarily detain women. Morality police squads have in the past been made up of men wearing green uniforms and women in black chadars or garments that cover the head and upper body. Those detained by the morality police are given a notice, or in some cases taken to a so-called education and advice center or a police station where they're required to attend a mandatory lecture on the hijab and Islamic values. They then have to call someone to bring them appropriate clothes in order to be released. The government and the Iranian parliament have been working on a legislation aimed at bolstering hijab controls, but the bill has come under fire from conservative opponents who argue it is too lenient. Under Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi's ultra-conservative administration, the morality police increased its presence in major cities. In response, thousands of women went out in the streets without a headscarf, with some sharing videos of themselves online to encourage other women. With the return of the morality police on the streets of Iran, the question is, will the bloody protests resume? Too many lives have already been lost.
We have also identified major risks of further erosion of women's and girls' rights in Iran. We have expressed concern about the continuous repression of women and girls, opposing forced veiling, and the reported use of facial recognition technologies to identify and arrest them. Alarming information according to which students are being suspended from their studies or banned from dormitories for their defiance of the compulsory veiling law continue to emerge.
Well, certainly a story that makes you anger, that makes you ask so many questions about how women continue to be treated in so many different parts of the world. What will the morality police do this time around? What will the Iranian regime do this time around? And what kind of a response are they likely to get? This suppression has gone on for far too long.